So this video will walk you through how to change your CVT oil. I'm not going to get into if you should or not. You should do your research first. I came to the conclusion I should, so that's why I did. I looked on YouTube, and a video that really helped me was by MT. I'll put a link to his video in the description. If you want to see an actual video form, I would check out his, but just keep in mind he has a Forester, and the inlet and outlet ports for the CVT are not quite the same, and he also has an added cover that you don't have to take off. But aside from that, it's almost identical. But I just wanted to put this up here too, just to show people exactly how to do it if they have an Outback. Here's just the samples of oil I took as I was changing it. The far left is new oil. The next one is when I drained the pan, and then the remaining 5 are after each quote-unquote flush. Hard to tell from the side really any difference, but if you look from the top down, this one here is the oil that was taken out of the pan, and then compare that. This is the 5th and final flush. You can just see how much clearer it is. Obviously it won't look like the brand new oil because we're not able to take all the old oil out and then put new oil in, so we'll always be mixing the new and old oil. So here's all the parts that you'll need and supplies. The only thing of note is for the oil, it's really up to you how many flushes you want to do. So the more flushes you do, the more oil you need. So you're going to take out about 4 quarts from the pan, and then each flush takes out about 2. So I was able to do 5 flushes. If you want to do more or less, then keep in mind you'll either need more or less oil. So here's going to be the general setup for your car. You want to jack it up and make sure you use some quality jack stands because you will be under there. I actually got cheap AC Delco jack stands in the back, so I actually kept the jack there too, just as kind of added protection. In the fronts I got Escos, so I'm not worried about the front. And then you also want to make sure your car is level, because that will obviously change your fluid level. Now you can crawl under there and take off the check/fill plug with a 8mm hex bit socket. Mine was pretty tight. I had to use a breaker bar on it, and some oil did come out, so make sure you have a drain pan under there, and then you can leave that bolt off for now. And then we want to take off the drain plug, which is a 14mm socket, and when you take that out, you'll drain anywhere in between 4 to 5 quarts. And once you've drained everything out of there, I would put the new gasket on there, and then for now you can just hand tighten it. So now that we drained that 4 to 5 quarts out, we want to put back in 4 to 5 new quarts of oil. So fill up your sprayer and make sure you have the plastic tip off the nozzle, and then stick it in there and start pumping in oil until you see it start flowing out, and then you can just pull the wand out, and you do not need to put the plug back in there. This is actually a screen grab from MT's video because I forgot to take a picture when I was doing mine. That's why it looks cleaner, because his only had 100K on it at this time, I believe, and mine has 232K. Now we're going to move to the top of the car. We want to take off the air intake here, so use a 8mm socket to loosen up those two hose clamps, and then you'll also have a plastic plug there. Mine's gone, so that's why you don't see it, but you should have something there. So take it off, and then just kind of move your intake off of there, and there will still be something attached on the driver's side, so you can just kind of move the intake over to the driver's side of it, because we'll be working on the passenger side. So this is the hose that we want to take off, so you're going to use your pliers to squeeze that hose clamp and move it down a little, and then twist and pull on the hose to take it off the nipple. Some oil will come out, so I'd recommend having some shop towels under there. Kind of interesting here, because according to Subaru's manual, it says that this is hose A, which they label as the cooler inlet hose, which I took to mean that it is the hose that the warm oil from the CVT is flowing into, and then into the cooler, and that the cooled oil would come out of hose B. But when I tested it out, oil is coming out of hose A. So hose A is actually carrying the cooled oil, so that is the hose we want to use, because we want to try to flush out, all that bad oil that's in the cooler right now as well. This picture was taken before I knew where the oil would come out of, so I put a vinyl tube on the nipple coming off the CVT, and also the hose from the cooler. Turns out that the oil's coming out of the hose from the cooler, so you don't really need that tubing on the nipple going into the CVT. But if you just want to be safe, you can still put it on there, but you definitely want to attach the vinyl tubing to the hose coming off the cooler. So use your barb to put it in the hose, and then use the clamp to keep the hose on the barb. And then I also put a zip tie on the vinyl tubing side to keep that nice and secure to the barb. And then once you have all these on, you can then go ahead and put your air intake back on. And once you have your air intake back on, you can then run the 1 or 2 tubes into your 2-liter bottle here. And there's actually a nice little spot there that if you kind of just squeeze the bottle in there, it kind of supports it. So if you don't have anybody to help you, you actually can do this by yourself. Here's a shot from inside the car just to show you that you can see the bottle from the driver's seat. So if you don't have anybody to help you, you can do this by yourself. And I just kind of show here where you want the oil at when you stop the engine. So here's just the general steps for each flush. So you obviously want to make sure your sprayer's filled up with new oil. Make sure your hoses are routed to your 2-liter bottle. Then you or someone else is going to turn on the engine, cycle through all the gears, making sure to pause 1 to 2 seconds at each one. And then once your bottle's starting to get filled up, you want to cut the engine no matter what gear you're in. Then you're going to empty that bottle out, put it back, put the hoses back in there, the tubes. Then you want to fill the CVT with about 2 quarts new oil, or until you start to see the new oil flowing out of there. And then you're just going to repeat this process over and over for as many flushes as you want to do. Just keep in mind that you'll need about 4 quarts of new oil after your final flush, because after your final flush you're going to put in that about 2 quarts of oil, and then you're going to remove the air intake, reconnect your cooler outlet hose back to the CVT, put the air intake back on, then you're going to turn the engine on, cycle through the gears to get the oil through everything, and then with the engine on you're going to go back under there, you're going to fill the CVT again until oil pours out. Then you do want to hand tighten that check plug. Leave the engine on, keep on cycling through the gears, and use your app to monitor the CVT oil temp, because we need to get the oil temp in between 95 and 113 Fahrenheit. Once we're in that range, you can then go back under there, remove the check plug, and oil should start coming out of there again. And you want to just keep letting it drain until it's down to about a trickle, and then hand tighten your check plug again, and you can turn the engine off now. So now that we know we got the proper amount of oil in there, we can go ahead and torque down the 2 plugs that are currently just hand tight. So the check plug you're going to tighten to 37 foot-pounds, and the drain plug you're going to do to 23. And once you get those torqued down, you should be pretty much all done. You just got to clean up and take the car out for a test drive.